Far beyond the reaches of known space, the Deathworlders' fleet cruised silently through the dark, cold void. These ships were no ordinary vessels. They belonged to humanity's toughest explorers and warriors, people trained to survive worlds, so hostile that most species called them death traps. Captain Mira Kane stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Iron Resolve, her eyes fixed on the glowing starfield displayed before her. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly, broken only by distant stars and faint nebulae. Suddenly the ship's sensors picked up something unusual, a faint pulse breaking the usual hum of space, a signal unlike anything they had encountered before. The SOS was weak and irregular, almost like a cry for help struggling to stay alive, across the stars. It came from a system that no human charts had recorded, a dark corner of space where no friendly ships had ventured. What made it clear was the unmistakable pattern of the signal. It was alien in origin, but the urgency behind it was impossible to ignore. Mira's fingers hovered over the controls as her mind raced, weighing the risks and possibilities. The Deathworlders were used to danger, but this felt different. Something about the frequency, the broken rhythm, carried a raw emotion, a desperate plea that clawed at her instincts. The fleet's scanners confirmed that the signal was being sent repeatedly, as if whoever sent it hoped someone would hear. The origin was cloaked in interference and cosmic noise, making it hard to pinpoint, but it was definitely there, begging for rescue. Without hesitation, Captain Kane gave the order to alter their course, steering the fleet toward the source. Her crew worked efficiently, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the instrument panels, knowing the risks that came with chasing unknown signals. It was a gamble, but one they had to take. For years, the Deathworlders had answered calls like this, saving stranded colonies or uncovering hidden dangers before they spread. Still, the unease in the captain's chest grew as they moved closer. The system was shrouded in mysterious radiation, and sensors detected unstable gravitational fields that hinted at something dangerous nearby. Communication logs showed no prior contact with this sector, leaving only questions. What species had sent the SOS? Were they alive? And what threat had pushed them to call out so desperately? The tension aboard the Iron Resolve was thick, every crew member aware that the unknown held no promises of safety. Mira stared out into the darkness, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The signal was more than a distress call. It was a challenge, a test of humanity's courage and skill. As the fleet approached the coordinates, strange readings flickered across the consoles. Unusual energy signatures, faint traces of life, and something else, something unidentifiable that sent a chill through the room. The captain's voice broke the silence, calm but firm. Prepare for whatever lies ahead. This isn't just a rescue mission. We may be walking into a trap, or the key to something far greater. Her words rippled through the crew, sharpening their focus. In that moment, the cold void of space seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting to see how the Deathworlders would answer the alien SOS that echoed in the dark. The Iron Resolve and its fleet slipped through the heavy clouds that surrounded the alien refuge, revealing a planet scarred and battered beyond recognition. The moment the Deathworlders entered the atmosphere, their sensors screamed warnings. Levels of toxic chemicals filled the air, radiation pulses danced unpredictably, and violent storms churned across the surface in endless cycles. This was no place for ordinary life. Yet for the Deathworlders, hardened by years of surviving Deathworlds, this environment was a challenge they had faced and conquered many times before. Captain Mira Kane watched the planet below with a sharp eye, the weight of what lay ahead pressing on her. Scattered across the jagged landscape, remnants of alien technology glowed faintly, struggling to hold together like fragile bones beneath the assault of relentless storms. The fleet's scanners picked up signs of life, weak but present, and the crew prepared landing parties with a mixture of caution and hope. When the teams finally touched down, they found themselves surrounded by ruins and debris, the result of a long and brutal struggle. The air was thick with dust and chemical haze, and every step forward was met with the threat of invisible poisons and unpredictable weather. Yet amid this devastation, Clusters of alien figures moved hurriedly, repairing battered ships and defending fragile camps from the many dangers lurking in the shadows. These were the Cleyrath, a species unknown to humanity until now. Their bodies lithe and covered with smooth, shimmering scales that reflected the dull light of their dying world. Despite their advanced technology, it was clear that survival here had become a desperate fight. Injuries, exhaustion, and fear marked their faces as they glanced cautiously at the newcomers. Mira's landing party made contact, their hands raised in peaceful greeting as the Cleyrath eyed them warily. Language was a barrier at first, but universal translators worked quickly to bridge the gap, revealing the raw truth behind the SOS. The Cleyrath were not just victims. They were fighters, cornered by a threat greater than they had ever imagined. The marauders had come like shadows, striking fast and without mercy, tearing through their defenses and leaving ruin in their wake. These predators weren't just after territory. They hunted for control, enslaving and destroying any who stood in their way. The Cleyrath hoped the Deathworlders' reputation for resilience and combat prowess could turn the tide. Captain Kane listened closely, her mind racing as the pieces fell into place. This SOS was not a simple plea for rescue. It was a call for alliance, a desperate bid for survival against an enemy that threatened both species and possibly the wider galaxy. The Cleyrath described the horrors of the marauders' raids, cities reduced to ashes, fleets shattered in space, and entire worlds forced into submission or extinction. Their own planet, once rich and vibrant, had become a wasteland where every breath was a risk and every moment a battle. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, the Cleyrath's spirit had not broken. Their leaders spoke with a fierce determination, asking not for charity, but for partnership. Mira could see the same fire in their eyes that burned in every Deathworlder she had ever known, the refusal to give up no matter the cost. As her crew began assessing the damage and helping to fortify defenses, strange movements caught their attention. The local predators, creatures evolved to survive the planet's harshness, prowled aggressively, sensing weakness in the newcomers and the survivors alike. The Deathworlders quickly adapted, using their experience to turn the environment to their advantage, setting traps and patrolling in teams. The tension between species slowly shifted, mutual respect growing as they faced common enemies. Yet even as alliances formed, the deeper threat loomed. The Marauders' presence was a shadow that darkened every plan and every hope. Captain Kane and her officers pored over tactical data, realizing that if this enemy could bring down the Cleyrath, their reach could soon extend to humanity itself. The question was no longer if they could save this planet, but how they could stop a force that seemed unstoppable. In the eerie quiet between storms, Mira stood with her new allies, staring into the black horizon and knowing that the battle ahead would test everything they had ever known about survival, courage, and trust. The alien SOS that had pulled the Deathworlders into this dangerous world had revealed a truth greater than a call for help. It was a summons to fight, to unite, and to rise against the darkness spreading across the stars. The more the Deathworlders worked alongside the Cleyrath, the clearer it became that the threat they faced was far larger and more terrifying than anyone had first imagined. As the teams repaired ships and rebuilt defenses, strange signals and intercepted communications told a chilling story. A marauder force was sweeping through the sector with brutal efficiency, destroying planets, capturing or killing entire populations, and leaving nothing but ruin in its wake. This enemy was unlike any they had faced before. Highly organized, relentless, and equipped with weapons that could reduce entire cities to rubble in moments. The Deathworlders quickly realized that this marauder force had already conquered several systems nearby, and the Cleyrath's home planet was just the latest target. As they gathered intelligence from the broken networks and captured marauder outposts, it became painfully obvious that these marauders had no mercy, no hesitation, and no interest in negotiation. The only thing they sought was total domination, bending every species they encountered into submission or destroying them outright. The harsh reality settled over the group like a shadow. The survival tactics that had kept the Deathworlders alive on the most dangerous planets now made them the galaxy's best, and possibly last, hope against the Marauders. However, surviving, this challenge meant working with the Klirath, and that was not simple. Differences in culture, language, and fighting styles sparked tension at every turn. The Klirath moved with speed and precision, favoring stealth and cunning, while the Deathworlders relied on brute force, adaptability, and endurance. Arguments broke out over strategy, discipline, and trust, and old wounds from centuries of isolation and suspicion threatened to pull the fragile alliance apart. The shared goal of survival forged bonds between warriors who had once eyed each other as strangers or threats. Still, danger was never far away. Scouts brought warnings of marauder patrols moving closer, their weapons growing more deadly, their numbers swelling. The Deathworlders prepared to defend the planet at all costs, using every trick and weapon they had mastered. Each battle tested their limits, revealing the true nature of the enemy. They were not just conquerors, but hunters, striking without warning, leaving psychological scars as much as physical ones. The Klirath and Deathworlders had to adapt quickly, learning to predict the enemy's moves and respond with unexpected counterattacks. Meanwhile, strange discoveries added layers of mystery. Among the ruins, the teams found ancient artifacts hinting that the Marauders might be part of a larger, even darker force, one that had roots deeper in the galaxy's history than anyone could imagine. This knowledge only increased the stakes and the tension, but it also gave hope. If the past held secrets, then maybe those secrets could be weapons or keys to victory. Captain Kane felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. The lives of two species, the fate of an entire region, and perhaps the future of humanity itself hung in the balance. She knew that winning would require more than skill and firepower. It would demand trust, sacrifice, and a willingness to face fear head-on. As night fell over the ravaged planet, the combined forces gathered in the command center, preparing for the battles yet to come. The threat was no longer distant. It was at their doorstep. The SOS that had once sounded like a desperate call for help had become a rallying cry, a challenge to stand firm against the darkness threatening to consume the stars. The Marauders finally arrived in full force, their dark fleet blotting out the stars as they descended upon the hostile planet, like a swarm of locusts. The sky burned with the light of incoming ships, and ground forces poured from the drop pods, spreading quickly across the poisoned landscape. For the Deathworlders and the Klirath, this was the moment they had prepared for but dreaded nonetheless. A desperate fight for survival on a world that already pushed them to their limits. Captain Mira Kane stood at the forefront of the defense, her sharp eyes scanning the battlefield as her teams moved with precision and determination. She knew that the key to victory lay in mastering the planet itself. The toxic storms, deadly radiation, and unstable terrain were not just obstacles. They were weapons waiting to be wielded. The Deathworlders had trained for years to turn harsh environments into advantages, and now that skill was the line between life and death. Using advanced sensor drones and old-fashioned scouts, they mapped out the Marauders' movements, setting traps where the poisoned air pooled thickest and leading enemy squads into narrow canyons where sudden landslides could crush them. Guerrilla strikes became their hallmark, small, fast teams attacking supply lines and communications before vanishing into the storm clouds. Each hit sent a message. They would not be easily defeated. The Klirath fought alongside them, weaving through the wreckage with grace and deadly efficiency, their sharp eyes catching enemy ambushes and their advanced weapons tearing through Marauder armor. But it was the human spirit, fierce and unyielding, that truly turned the tide. Captain Kane coordinated daring counterattacks that caught the Marauders off guard. Raids launched from hidden caves, surprise strikes under the cover of violent storms, and relentless pressure on enemy command centers. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, the Deathworlders' ingenuity and determination kept the enemy off balance. In the thick of battle, moments of silence and calm were rare, but when they came, they allowed the warriors to catch their breath and remember why they fought, not just for survival, but for the chance to protect allies, to stand against darkness, and to prove that even in the deadliest places, humanity's light could shine. The ground shook under the weight of Explosions and collapsing cliffs, and the air burned with the smell of ozone and scorched metal. Yet every victory, no matter how small, brought renewed hope. As days stretched into weeks, the alliance between humans and Clyrath grew stronger. Shared hardships forged bonds of trust and respect, turning once wary strangers into comrades who fought with a single heart and mind. Captain Kane saw it in the way the Clyrath covered her soldiers' backs and how her own crew took risks to protect the alien fighters. The battles were brutal, and losses were felt deeply, but retreat was not an option. The Marauders' relentless advance pushed both sides to their limits, and the planet itself seemed to fight alongside its defenders, swallowing Marauder units, in sudden storms and hiding the Deathworlders from deadly attacks. The turning point came when Captain Kane led a bold assault on a Marauder command post hidden in the planet's most dangerous wasteland, a place so toxic, even the Marauders avoided it. Using experimental suits and protective gear, her team struck fast and hard, crippling enemy leadership and sowing chaos among their ranks. This victory shattered the illusion of Marauder invincibility and sparked a surge of morale among the defenders. But the battle was far from over. The Marauders regrouped, their anger turning into a fierce determination to crush the resistance once and for all. The final confrontation loomed, a clash that would decide the fate of the planet and possibly the entire sector. Captain Kane and her allies prepared for this last stand with careful precision, knowing that every life, every weapon, and every advantage mattered. As the dark clouds rolled in and the first shots rang out once again, the Deathworlders and Clyrath stood side by side, ready to face the storm together. This was more than a fight for a planet. It was a testament to survival, courage, and the unbreakable will of those who refused to surrender. In the heart of the Deathworld, amid fire and fury, humanity's fierce spirit burned brighter than ever. The battle was over, but the scars it left on the planet and its people ran deep. The once hostile and deadly world had become a symbol of resilience and hope, a place where two very different species had stood together against a common enemy and emerged victorious, though battered and weary. The Deathworlders and the Clyrath gathered in the dim light of their shared command center, the air heavy with exhaustion but also with a newfound sense of purpose. Captain Mira Kane looked around at the faces of her crew and their alien allies, seeing in them not just survivors, but the beginning of something greater. An alliance forged in fire and hardship. It was clear now that the SOS signal, that desperate plea that had pulled them into the depths of unknown space, had become far more than a call for help. It was a beacon, a symbol that echoed across the stars, telling all who could hear that humanity was not only tough, but willing to stand for others, to protect the weak, and to fight with honor alongside friends, no matter their origins. The Clyrath, leaders once cautious and distant, now spoke openly with the Deathworlders, planning ways to rebuild their shattered worlds and prevent future threats. Their technology, combined with human innovation and strategy, promised a new era of strength and cooperation. But the alliance went beyond mere strategy. It was a bond born from shared sacrifice, trust, and respect. Captain Kane knew this alliance would face many tests in the days ahead. The Marauders, though defeated on this planet, were only one part of a much larger threat lurking in the shadows of the galaxy. Still, the message was clear. Wherever darkness rose, humanity and its allies would stand as a light. The story of the Deathworlders spread quickly, becoming legend among star-faring civilizations. Tales of their courage on the Deathworld inspired other species to rise and fight against oppression and fear. It reminded everyone that even in the harshest conditions, the human spirit could shine bright, fierce, and unbreakable. For Mira Kane and her crew, the victory was bittersweet. They had lost comrades and faced horrors no one should ever endure. But they had also gained something priceless, a chance to shape the future, to create a galaxy where unity could overcome division and hope could conquer despair. As they prepared to leave the battle-scarred planet behind, the SOS signal that had once sounded like a faint cry now echoed loudly through space. A call to arms, a promise of protection, and a testament to the enduring strength of humanity and its new allies. Together they looked to the stars, ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. knowing they would not face it alone. The war was over, but its echoes still hung heavy in the air as the battered forces of humans and Clyrath gathered under the dim light of a battered command center that had become a symbol of survival and unity. The once fragmented groups, who had entered the battle as uneasy allies at best, now stood shoulder to shoulder as partners bound by shared sacrifice and a common purpose far greater than any one species. Captain Mira Kane surveyed the room, her eyes meeting those of the Clyrath leaders. Their scales dulled from exhaustion, but their spirits unbroken. The harsh, toxic storms that had raged across the planet seemed to quiet, almost respectful of, the new alliance that had been forged in the crucible of war. This alliance was unlike any before, born not from treaties or convenience, but from the raw, unyielding will to protect, to survive, and to fight for the future of many worlds. The Deathworlders, known across human space for their ruthless survival skills and unwavering courage, had shown something deeper on this harsh death world. They had demonstrated an unmatched willingness to stand for others, to shield the weak, and to join hands with alien species not as conquerors but as equals. The SOS signal that had once been a desperate cry for help now pulsed through space as a beacon of hope, a call to all civilizations that humanity would not turn away from. Darkness, no matter how vast or terrifying, it was a promise that they would fight alongside their allies, sharing strength and strategy, and that their spirit would endure through the toughest battles yet to come. The Clyrath, once isolated and on the brink of extinction, found in the Deathworlders a partner who understood the cost of survival and the value of unity. Together they began to rebuild, pooling technology and knowledge to heal the wounds inflicted by the Marauders. Discussions buzzed with plans not just for recovery, but for future defenses that could prevent such devastation from ever occurring again. Yet the new alliance was more than a military pact. It was a bond of trust forged through fire, a testament to what could be achieved when old fears were set aside for the greater good. Captain Kane knew that the battle they had just won was but the first chapter in a longer war that threatened the galaxy's fragile peace. The Marauders were still out there, lurking in the dark corners of space, waiting for another chance to strike. But now, the Deathworlders and Clyrath stood together, stronger and more determined than ever. Their unity sent ripples through the galaxy, inspiring other species who had felt isolated or powerless to believe in the possibility of hope and cooperation. Stories of the fierce battles on the Deathworld spread like wildfire, turning the Deathworlders into legends and symbols of resilience and compassion. The once faint SOS signal grew into a steady, shining call that reached distant stars, telling all who heard it that humanity and its allies would fight and survive against any darkness. For Mira Kane, the victory was bittersweet. She mourned. The comrades lost, felt the weight of the scars left behind, but carried with her the unshakable belief that this alliance could change the future. As the Deathworlders prepared to leave the ravaged planet, the SOS signal continued to echo, a beacon lighting the way forward, reminding all that in the vast, cold expanse of space, there was still a fierce and unbreakable light burning in humanity's heart, ready to stand against whatever came next.